is it? Just hit 8 o'clock my time. I'm in Mountain Standard Time. Obviously, what's the time zone where you're at there, Kelvin?
I'm in Central European summertime, so that is it's 4 right now.
Okay, so just the tail end of your day, but I take it you probably are up at the break of the sunset there, or sunrise there. But anyways, so let's get started here. Welcome to the Nerdy Birdy. Today we have none other than Kelvin Tegelaar from CIPP joining us to level up our Microsoft 365 game. So again, if you're new to the Nerdy Birdy, this webinar series, we're showing start to finish examples of successful integrations with our synthesized vendors and channel partners. It's one thing to get an integration or PSA off the ground. It's quite another to see it take flight. So again, this is really getting to the nitty gritty. We wanna hear the good, the bad, the ugly. And so we want to hear what went less well, what went well. And after all, every flight hits a little turbulence now and then. And yes, you're going to hear a lot of bird puns because after all, Gradient MSP's spokesbird is a flamingo. So anyhow, join us every third Tuesday, usually, of every month as we explore vendor and PSA integrations from every angle so you can realize your full potential and utilize the synthesized platform as best as you can. So let's get started by reviewing our agenda for today. So real brief, we're going to start with a few introductions. What is CIPP? What is synthesized? We're going to take a deep dive demo. Kelvin's going to take the reins there, take control. He's going to drive that demo and get into the nitty gritty with CIPP and the synthesized integration. And we're going to follow that with some Q&A. So please go into chat. There's a Q&A section there. We will be monitoring that throughout the webinar. If relevant, I might just interject and interrupt Kelvin throughout that demo if you do have any questions, but otherwise we can leave that any others for that Q&A section. And then just a few little announcements here and there at the very tail end. But yeah, we're gonna have a lot of fun with this next 60 minutes together. So let's get started. Myself, if you don't know me, my name's Bryan Chapman. I'm a quote unquote a recovering MSP. I've been on the other side of the fence working at MSP prior to Gradient for 6+ years. So I empathize and with all of you as far as your day-to-day operations. It's very challenging to be an MSP. So I'm the measure of partner success here at Gradient MSP. I'm really committed to supporting MSPs in realizing their full potential with the synthesized platform. What does that mean? Well, again, just making sure that whether it be billing reconciliation or monitoring and streamlining alerts, this is really where we have those two modules, alerts, billing, to hopefully make your life easier and make sure that we're folding those greenbacks into your wallet so you get paid for everything that you do. So we'll talk more about that later, but let's talk about Kelvin. If you don't already know, Kelvin, I mean, he's the jack of all trades. He's the Sherlock Holmes of the channel, and he's the Nerdy Birdy today. So Kelvin, welcome. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thanks. First, I'm super glad to be here. I'm super glad to be a Nerdy Birdy. I don't think I've ever been a Nerdy Birdy before, so that is a new title that I'm going to wear with pride. Well, everything about me is pretty much in this slide. In short, I am one of the owners, one of the partners at Lime Networks at MSP in the Netherlands. We've grown exponentially over the last years, and thanks to that growth, I had the ability to have some more free time to spend on the MSP channel itself. And with that, I created CyberDrain.com, a tech blog that's oriented at making sure that people are able to start automating more. That's what CyberDrain started with. Eventually, that rolled into creating CIPP, and CIPP stands for CyberDrain Improved Partner Portal, and it's a tool that allows M365 multi-tenant management. Next to all of that stuff, I'm also a Microsoft MVP. I do a lot of public speaking at events such as MSP GeekCon, DattoCon, IT Nation, all of these events where people need to talk about what it's like to be an MSP and what my experience specifically are.
Yeah, you're the MVP of the MSP channel. There's no doubt, like Mauro said in the chat. There's no question that you contribute so much to the channel. And hey, you even contributed to me just as of this week with a question related to app permissions within Azure Active Directory. So like there's lots of things that you do, and there's no question, if you're not already part of MSP Geek, get involved, because Kelvin's probably one of the top contributors there too, and you can easily Slack or Discord him too. So not to blow up your DMs by any means, but there's no question that you'll do whatever it takes to support anyone within the channel, and a true MVP. And that Microsoft MVP award that you just were awarded again, how many years running is that?
That's 4 years running, 3 official awards, because I got awarded the first time halfway through the award cycle, so it's kind of vague, but I can say I am a 4-time MVP.
That's amazing. I mean, that's an accomplishment in itself. So let's talk more about CIPP. So obviously this is where I just put out a few little bullets, and there's even more that I can't fit on one slide. So why don't you just elaborate on all the things that is CIPP?
Yeah, so elaborating on all the things that is CIPP is nearly impossible, because over time it's grown into this monster of an application. I'm not saying that as oh no, it is overwhelming. I'm just saying that we have a lot of functionality pushed into one product. We wanted to achieve, and I'm saying we because we as MSPs, CIPP is an open source application. And because of that, all MSPs are able to contribute to the application, whether it be documentation or code or front-end development. Any MSP that wants to can add to CIPP and can increase its functionality. So whenever I'm saying we, I'm really saying the MSP channel. It's all of us. While the application might have been my brainchild and started as a little bit of spike-driven development because RMM vendors weren't catching up to cloud management, it has become more of an application for the entire MSP community, where I'm just the steward of the application. CIPP does a lot. CIPP can do everything that you can do in the Microsoft 365 management portals. And I'm saying everything because we have made sure that all the functionality that an MSP needs is in there. Next to just having the ability to manage everything and do our standard administration, we also have standardization and best practice analysis. So you don't have just a tool that you can use to manage users, create users, manage licenses, groups, Defender for endpoint, autopilot, Intune, all of these things. But you also have the ability to push standards towards all your tenants. And that means that it's very easy to say like, okay, hey, these are the settings that all of my tenants always need to have. And I'm going to make sure that they remain in that state thanks to using this tool. So CIPP does something that often is considered desired state configuration. It doesn't report, so it's not exactly a desired state, but it does keep pushing the settings that you want towards your tenants. Imagine you have a setting that says, I want unified audit logging enabled, and someone tries to disable it. Moments later, CIPP will push towards that tenant, re-enabling the unified audit log, making sure that those settings don't get out of sync.
Yeah, that's awesome. And let's talk about, like, real quick, just because there is a stigma with open source software, can you talk and elaborate more on security and compliance when it comes down to it? Because there's, let's face it, there's contributors within the channel that are contributing to CIPP, and you know, how often are there weekly, monthly releases with CIPP as well?
So every 2 weeks, we have a new release. So far, we've only had 2 security issues found in the entire product because we also, CIPP is called sponsorware. You don't have to pay for it, but you can pay for it. And at that moment, we host the software for you. We give you some basic support, these kind of things. And that gives us the ability to do stuff like regular scheduled pen tests. Every 6 months, we have a pen test on the entire application, where a specialized company goes through all of our source code, both the front end and the back end, tests everything they can test, and returns to us like, hey, these are potential security issues you've had. Since the inception 2 years ago, we've had 2 issues, which were both very minor. It was like an issue on a page where people could potentially influence some data. So security-wise, we make sure that it's always up to the highest standards possible. We also use what's called the Microsoft Secure Application Model, which makes sure that we don't have more access than what's required. We are completely GDAP compatible, so you can give us the most granular permissions possible, even to the point where you can say, I only want to start using the app for read-only purposes. I don't want to edit anything, but I just want to be able to read. You can absolutely set it up in that way. So everything has been created with this security first mindset. And that's also what all the contributors that help on the software try to assist us with, like keeping that constant security at the forefront.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question that security is paramount when you're tying into all your clients' MSP tenants. Yeah, so, exactly. Yeah, no, that's amazing. I mean, to only have 2 minor incidences in that time frame is truly phenomenal. Because let's face it, you're reaching over what 1.5 million, probably more than that, MSP executives, technicians, managers annually. Like that's insane. That's a big number.
It's the growth of CIPP has been insane. Absolutely. I remember where in the first couple of weeks I was like, oh, I'm so amazed that we have over 100 MSPs using it. And we're currently, I actually just checked it right before this webinar, we're at almost 4,000 MSPs using the product today. In the last 3 weeks, we've had an extreme growth as well, where thanks to some bad publicity, we've sort of had a chance to grow even more, because thanks to that bad publicity, people started seeing the application a little bit more.
Yeah, we know who's behind CIPP, and we support you through and through. And yeah, there's no question that CIPP is a phenomenal product, and if you haven't already got your hands on it, you can get registered today. I mean, like you mentioned, Kelvin, there's a free self-hosted option, as well as a hosted option. I think it's what, $99 US or something like that per month.
$99 US. It is that is including basic email support. That is including some small the hosting cost itself, of course, basic email support, and some other small benefits, such as getting releases a little bit earlier and getting some extra feature requests that you can submit, and where we give some more priority to those feature requests.
Yeah, that's a steal. Okay, so I really want to get to demo time, but before we do, let's just talk about Synthesize. So if you are unaware of Synthesize, it's by grading MSP. So this Synthesize platform is all about, we have a billing module and an alerts module. So that billing module is really all about pain-free billing reconciliation for MSPs. This is where we're tying straight into your client usage from multiple sources of truth, whether it be direct integrations to your vendor, custom integrations to multiple data sources, whether it be SQL database, or going straight into your MSP centric tools like BrightGauge, or like straight into your PSA. For all we know, we can do it all, whether it be through again, direct integrations, custom integrations, or CSV imports. We're sucking that information in so you can then review and approve those changes and instantly write back to your PSA. So you get paid for everything that you do. So identify opportunities to grow your business, underperforming services. This is where you can zero in on opportunities to increase revenue and profit. And you can minimize the time and resources dedicated to reconciling, because that in itself takes a long time, and once it compounds over the amount of customers or services that you resell. And myself coming from an MSP, I only empathize with those people that have to hunker down every month and do that reconciliation. And really, we want to minimize the time and omit any errors that come with billing reconciliation. So you have invoice accuracy, and you reduce the amount of callbacks from our clients. You get paid on time. And again, it's just all about making sure that you get paid for everything that you do as an MSP, because that is in itself hard enough. And let's face it, your IT invoice is probably one of the most scrutinized things out there. So again, we're all about invoice accuracy. Now, as far as our alerts module go, to be fair, this is really in its infancy. I'm going to talk a little bit more as far as what's coming next with our alerts module. But this is really where CIPP, this CIPP integration is dual integration, billing and alerts. If we support your PSA and alerts, you can turn on both integrations. If you're interested, our alerts module currently supports Datto, Autotask PSA, ConnectWise Manage, Kaseya BMS, Pulseway. What's coming soon within, I believe, this quarter or next is Halo PSA and Synchro MSP. So this is where we're expanding our alerts module, and we're even expanding it to the point where we're going to be adding threaded alerts and rule sets very soon. So what does that mean? Threaded alerts is really where you're not just creating tickets after tickets every time something is triggered. No, if it's that same alert from that same customer, this is where we're just going to up that previously created ticket. So we're not just bombarding your PSA board or ticket board with hundreds of tickets. On top of that, we're also going to be eventually introducing rule sets, so you have greater control over these tickets that are created within your PSA. So lots coming down the roadmap, but as it sits right now, we support Autotask, ConnectWise Manage, Kaseya BMS, and Pulseway. So just wanted to throw that out there so we can manage expectations. But as far as the billing side of things go, we support 9 PSAs, which would include the others like Halo PSA, Synchro, Cloud Blue PSA, TigerPaw, and those others that I had mentioned earlier. So we have a huge breadth of what we can support as far as PSAs go, and then we're introducing integrations each and every month, including CIPP, which is what we're really wanting to dive into. So enough about Synthesize, because I don't really want this to be focused on Synthesize necessarily, but let's just take a deep dive into CIPP. So without further ado, Kelvin, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'll let you share your screen. Take it away. And for those that have any questions, again, I just want to remind you, our chat has already been really active this morning, which is awesome. But if you have any questions and you want to interject and interrupt Kelvin throughout this demo, please jump into the Q&A section, and we can even answer those live. If not, we can just answer those at the very tail end of this webinar here.
Yeah, absolutely. So bother us as much as you possibly can, because that is the most fun type of webinar I can imagine. Let me just share my screen. I'm going to ask that terrible question that every presenter always asks all the time during all of these webinars. Can you see my screen? And now you're all going to say, yes, we can. And you're all going to chat.
Yes.
So give me a second. Let me just make sure that I have everything that we need. So what you're seeing right now is the CIPP dashboard. I'm not going to show you all the functionality of CIPP today because, well, like I said, we built a lot of stuff in here. There is, if I would unfold all these menus, we'd already just be busy for 5 minutes just walking through what all the menus are able to do. Even though we have all that functionality, we made sure that everything is still very much organized in the way that you're used to. Like everything is in the most Microsoft-y terms as possible. This is supposed to be an improvement on how Microsoft did their partner portals. Instead of having 50 different places to jump to, you have one location where you can manage near everything. And when you can manage it, you can jump to the specific portal that you need directly from the application. So let me actually start with that. The administration overview and tenants actually gives you an overview of all available tenants. Now, this is my testing environment and won't show all that much. And in case you guys are like, hey, why is this a little bit slow? This is my development environment. So any errors you see or any pop-ups you see or that kind of stuff is because this is the live development version. It's actually the latest of the greatest. So I could show you guys everything. It does mean that the performance might not be as well as when you would self-host it or have it in Azure. So as you can see, these are my 2 tenants available right now, and I can click on these tenants and actually perform specific actions. I can check if AD Connect is enabled. I can make sure that what the tenant type is, all this stuff, but I can also do something that is very rarely an option in Microsoft's M365 partner management things. I can actually click add a tenant and I can do something that you can't do in the current partner portal. And that is I can change the name of this tenant. I can actually say, you know what, this isn't an E5 license anymore. This is an E3 license. This client changed. And it actually just propagates through the entire tenant everywhere, which is one of those small features that Microsoft has hidden behind APIs, but hasn't.
Wait a second. I didn't even know CIPP even does this. I remember having to, as a CSP reseller, having to change display names and tenants. And it was absolutely atrocious because it, like you said, it is like behind a hidden like API. Like it took eons just to find that thing. That is simply amazing just in itself because it's not easy.
There's a lot of these tiny little features that we've implemented there that seem like, oh, these are small quality of life improvements, but the feedback we get on these is like, holy crap, I've been trying to do this for 5 years.
Yeah.
Why hasn't Microsoft thought of doing this? So that is just starting with the Microsoft, the jump portal, as this is pretty much called. You can click on any portal here, immediately get logged into that specific portal, and make sure that you can manage, for example, Microsoft Security Center or the Intune Center or the Azure portal. You can even click this little button if you don't want the direct links and you just want an export of the names and the default domains. And talking about exports, anything you do in CIPP has 2 little buttons here, a CSV export and a PDF export. All the tables, all the data contained in them can be exported at any moment you want it. So that means I want a report of all the users. Let's go to the users right now. This portal is one of my development portals. This data is all fake. It's Microsoft created stuff. But imagine I just want to filter this on all licensed users with a license. It starts searching for all these licensed users. I can hit this PDF export button, and I now have a PDF that contains this specific portal's licensed users. But it doesn't just stop there, because the Microsoft portals are very lacking in that you constantly have to change between tenants and have to re-log in. If I want to do another portal, if I, for example, want my M365 E5 portal, I can just click here and I get my next portal. So it works in a very quick manner where you can just say, like, you know what, right now I manage this tenant, now I want to manage this tenant, or I want to manage all tenants at the same time. You click on all tenants, it loads the data because that takes a bit longer. You can't just call all of those APIs at the same time. You just wait until the tenant loads, and there we go. All of these tenants are now combined in here. So you can actually show, for example, hold on, I think there is a tenant column. I disabled that right now, but you could see all the tenant names of all the users that you've collected. Someone, don't hard to just ask, show the actual domain? Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to ask you. Yeah.
These are test tenants, so they don't have a domain attached. By default, they show the normal email address, and they even have the ability. You even have the ability to enable the proxy addresses in the list. Addresses,
awesome.
where you see all the alternative email addresses as well, and you're able to filter and search on all of the alternative addresses. Now, talking about search, that's another thing that can get quite annoying at times, like trying to find a specific user when you're working on the help desk and you don't know in which tenant they live. In our dashboard, we actually have what's called Lighthouse Search, where you can search any tenant by their UPN or display name. So I could just enter Nestor Wilk, I think. I'm not sure if this is onboarded yet because these are my test tenants, but it's currently just searching through all of the available tenants. And I now find all the Nestors in all tenants. Imagine you have someone on the phone that just gave you his first name. You can check like, okay, hey, which person would this actually be? Like which tenants would they belong to? You can very easily find them in this way. So like I said, I'm not going to jump through all of these things, but adding users, creating users, inviting guests, adding groups, adding roles, all of this stuff is inside of CIPP. The entire point of the portal is that you never have to jump anywhere else again. Now, the cool thing, what I was explaining isn't just the standard administration stuff. The standards are what really makes CIPP. We have a wizard that allows you to select standards that applies on all of your tenants at once or very selected tenants. For example, if I want all my tenants to be in a state, I click all tenants and I say, I want to restrict guest users from accessing directory objects. I want to disable basic authentication, or I want to enable modern authentication. I want to enable usernames instead of anonymous names in reports. And it has these standards for each part of M365. The most important things are there. I want to disable tenant creation. I want to enable per user MFA. I want to enable auto-expanding archives, and I want to set the sharing level for the default calendar. Next, hold on. Next, you have set maximum devices for an Intune user. You have the SharePoint standards. Like I said, there's a lot of them. I'm not going to walk through all of these standards, but each of these you can apply. Make sure that they're always remaining in that state. So when I click next here and I click finish, it will start applying these things on a regular schedule to all of my tenants, all of the time. Mm-hmm. It won't stop. Imagine one of my users is making a mistake and he forgot to enable MFA on a user. CIPP picks that up, enables MFA for that specific user, because I have a standard that says we need to enable MFA for all users. But it's not just like little checkboxes for standards. Imagine that you have a client that you use very specific Intune environments with. You need to skip the autopilot setup page, you need to automatically configure Outlook, and you need to enable OneDrive silent logon. You can apply Intune baselines to those tenants as well. You can apply transport rules, exchange connectors, conditional access, making sure that all you have to do is set up one basic tenant that allows you to sort of template everything you need. And then you can apply those templates everywhere else. Joe just asked in chat if the enable MFA requires that. Enabling legacy MFA requires delegated access permissions because it uses the old MSOL module. That entire feature is going away in 3 months. All of legacy MFA is going away in 3 months. So yes, it requires that right now. In 3 months, that feature will no longer be in CIPP, but it will recommend you to either enable security defaults or enable conditional access policies to force MFA for all users. And I can show that right now here. We can deploy
one other question there too, Kelvin. So Joe had another question is, if you remove DAP or GDAP relationships, how do you remove it from CIPP? Do you just hide it, or can you clean it up and completely remove it if it's gone from Partner Center?
If it's gone from Partner Center, so that's the cool thing. We pick up everything from the Partner Center. After 24 hours, it should automatically disappear from CIPP. Now I'm saying it should because sometimes we cache things a little bit longer than expected. What you can do is you can go to CIPP settings and you have a clear tenant cache button. That removes all of the tenants from the cache, reloads them from Partner Center, and they will disappear from your entire list of selectable options. It should be pretty easy to do that. The settings menu is extremely powerful. I'd be a little bit careful with the clear all caches button because it also clears your browser cache for this page. And that means you lose specific customizations such as your profile settings, your default page settings, your theme. You can have the light theme or the dark theme. Your report image. If you click that button, all of that will get cleared as it's a user setting.
Awesome. And Perry has like a follow-up question to GDAP. So it's like sometimes for L1 help desk, not all features are needed. What is advised on security as there are no roles in CIPP? Use GDAP as the base, so CIPP will show features, but based on GDAP roles, a user has permissions or not. And so that's really where, yeah, so take that away for what that's
we have a role system in CIPP next to the SAM application model. First off, CIPP is completely GDAP compatible in the sense that when you set it up with your CIPP service account user, and you can find the information for that on docs.cip.app. CIPP has complete support for GDAP, but all the actions CIPP does are executed on the service account. So that does mean that the user's GDAP permissions no longer matter. To resolve that, we have a role system inside of CIPP itself. At the moment that you invite a user, you can make the choice to invite them either as a read-only user, which allows them to read and nothing else. You can invite them as an editor user, which allows them to create users, edit users, that kind of stuff, but not change primary system settings. And that is stuff like applying standards, changing the CIPP settings themselves, excluding or including tenants, removing tenant information. They can only edit users, groups, these kind of things. And then there's the third level, the admin level, where they're able to do everything, including changing the CIPP settings, executing maintenance scripts, all of these kind of things. Now, like I said, CIPP has a lot of features, like so much I'd be busy for hours if I want to talk about every single one of them. So let's dive a little bit more into the features that would matter for something like gradient synthesize and for something like
let's talk about reports real quick, because there's a couple other questions that came in.
Cool. Yeah.
Preejay is they're pretty pleased. Can you show us an MFA report? And then Don is asking, he has guest users on SharePoint and wants to get a report of the last login by external users. Does CIPP report that? That's a really good one. I did a lot of work with intranets with SharePoint, and that's always was the question as to which guest users have external access. That's always frightening.
So let me just pop open some of the report windows so you guys can see which report we have available by default. We have the MFA report, which I'll show in a minute, Preejay. You'll be able to see it. The inactive users report, a sign-in report, an Azure AD Connect report. We have specific tenant reports like licenses, consented applications, service health. We have security reports, and we have email reports. Now, you're thinking like, oh, but I'm missing stuff there. The great thing is that we also created a tool called the Graph Explorer. The Graph Explorer allows you to create any custom report that you want as long as it's supported in Graph. Let's, for example, say I want all applications signed in the last 30 days. This is a report. I can hit the query button. It should generate a report for me now about all applications that have had a sign in the last 30 days. All you have to know is which graph endpoint you need to get the information that you want, and you can fill it in here. So getting a list of the SharePoint users with their last logon date would be something like users, select user principal name, mail, I think account type, if I'm not mistaken, account type, and last login. At the moment that you hit query now, you start getting that information from the report. Now, I won't hit query for this specific report because it might not make a lot of sense, but you can do that for everything that's in this list and create your own, even having a user registration report. For example, if I hit query now, I can see like, hey, is this user an admin? Is he registered for SSPR? All of the graph endpoints that you can get are listed here. So that answers the question about the SharePoint report. Yes, absolutely. You will have to custom make it. I am able to make sure that we get a bit more reports in this list, so you're able to easier build off of the base reports that we have in there. Now, let's show Prij his MFA report, because this is actually one of the coolest and most powerful reports in CIPP. And I'm saying it's the coolest and most powerful report in CIPP because this contains so much information from so many different sources. We go to the Microsoft, the old MSOL API to get the per user MFA status. We go to the actual Microsoft API to get the Graph API to get the conditional MFA status. But we don't just check if they're registered. We're checking if there's actually something enforced via conditional access. In this case, this testing tenant doesn't really have anything available in regards to MFA. We're seeing that, yes, this account is enabled. We're seeing that, no, it doesn't have a license, but per user MFA is disabled. It's not registered for conditional MFA, and there is no policy name for enforced via conditional access. It's also not enforced via security defaults. So immediately in this report, you see all of the potential options. You see per user, conditional access, and security defaults in one single report. A lot of tools allow you to report in the same way, but they rely on a P1 license. This report does not rely on a P1 license except for the parts that require P1. So do you want to report on conditional access? You will need that license. But do you just want to report on per user MFA status? It is right there. We could go to administration right now, enforce per user MFA for a user. Let me actually see if that works in this testing tenant. I'm not entirely sure. I can say, hey, I want to enable MFA. So that successfully complete request. User must now supply MFA at next logon. And I believe if I go to the report now, it should immediately refresh and show that Christy, I think her name was. See, well, let's sort on per user MFA status. We now have Christy, who is enabled in the report. It's almost instantaneous actions. And that's the same everywhere. One of the rules that we have for the contributors in CIPP, it must be fast. We must make sure that the portal remains fast. It shouldn't be like the Microsoft portals where you're waiting 20 seconds, 30 seconds, 40 seconds just for a page to load. That makes it annoying for all system administrators.
Yes.
Okay. I think we answered.
Even their tenant switcher takes forever. I mean, like the fact that you can just switch between tenants with ease is like crazy. Now, Perry has another question here. So CIPP has like 1,001 features, which is awesome. Can partners also use the CIPP REST API to retrieve the information in their own ERP systems? In the past, there was an API documentation, but seems this is not available anymore.
The only reason the API documentation isn't available anymore is because I switched documentation systems and I didn't want to maintain the API documentation. It was laziness, not that I removed a feature. The API documentation never explained how to authenticate. I'm going to make sure that at our next release, which is this Friday, we're going to show you how to create an API key and how to use the REST API to retrieve this data too. You're absolutely allowed to do that. You're absolutely saying, you can say, I just want to deploy this part of CIPP, so just the API, and you're absolutely able to retrieve all the data from the API. It's not that I removed the API documentation because it's not supported. It was just one of those things I couldn't maintain on my own. Now, that of course brings me to the next point. CIPP is open source. Contributors are welcome. If you're saying you want to maintain the API documentation, please be my guest. Please. Anyone?
Yeah, so that's readily available within Git. So that's where you can just fork or clone that repository and kind of contribute and pull requests there, right? Yeah, and that's reviewed. Obviously, the code is reviewed.
Yeah, that's reviewed. Of course, it has to be accurate. Of course, it has to be secure. All of that stuff. Every pull request is reviewed. In general, we have a very good team inside of our Discord where I think the longest people wait for a reply is like 5 minutes or something. It's everyone is super invested in the entire application.
I mean,
Now,
obviously, I mean, there's still some questions coming through here. Now, I know you have lots to cover, and we will get to these things. So Joe Joe had a question about the different sources, modules, portals. While PowerShell coding is tough, do you have any suggestions or tools on how to visualize the MSFT Microsoft infrastructure in all its parts? Example, keeping track of the moving pieces in O365, Azure, any go-to or favorite resources of yours?
As a Microsoft MVP, I can give you a very clear answer that we've been instructed to give to everyone asking this question. Use the Graph API. Yes. Microsoft has committed to making the Graph API the only place where you can do these things. They have said, we're no longer going to maintain all of these PowerShell modules. We're no longer going to maintain all of these different disparate objects in M365. We want a single API that everyone can use and everyone can play with. The Graph API PowerShell module is not the best PowerShell module ever made, but it does contain every way to connect to Microsoft at this point in time. There is some lacking points. For example, in identity management, there are some issues. Microsoft is working on those very fast. They're making sure that Graph is catching up to everyone for everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, use the Graph API and use the Exchange Management PowerShell command. The one that the only thing I have to be careful of with saying that is there are exceptions. The Graph API doesn't. Joe just said it in chat. Graph API isn't finished. You sometimes still have to revert to older modules. I believe that for per user MFA status, everyone still needs to use the MSOL module currently, which is deprecated. All I can say is, hold on, it's coming. I can't give you exact dates. I can just promise it is on its way, truly.
That's awesome. Wow, this has been super insightful so far. What else do you have in story here?
So let's go a little bit more gradient focused. Licensing. Licensing is the bane of our existence. Any MSP knows that to correctly count licenses, you're busy for hours because you have to jump through all the portals. Sometimes the billing thing doesn't work. You have to log into Global Administrator to check the billing information. It gets complex. Now, CIPP has a very simple license report where per tenant you can get, hey, this is the tenant name. These are the licenses available. It tries to convert these licenses to the pretty name. If it is not able to do that, for example, developer pack E5 doesn't exist as an actual SKU. It just shows the inside name. You see that currently I have 17 licenses used, 8 available, 25 licenses total. Now I can switch my tenants very easily here and can say like, okay, you know what, I want it for just those tenants. But I can also, again, go to the all tenants menu, wait for a little bit. I can hit this refresh button, it's loading data. I still have to wait. But eventually it will start giving me this data from all the APIs that it's connected to. So it just goes one by one. It goes off the entire list of your tenants. If you have 1, if you have 1,000, it just goes down that list and creates this report for you. Now,
and you can still modify those columns just like any other page within CIPP, right?
Exactly.
You can export, you can modify that. Yeah.
For example, if you want the actual SKU ID, like the GUID, you can add that. You can add the SKU part number. You can add the timestamp that it was added so that you can actually see like, okay, this was the moment it was added. There's all of these options available. And still you can hit the export button or you can hit the CSV export button and it creates that entire export for you. Now that's great if you're old fashioned. If you're using CSV files and PDF files to make sure that you're doing your billing reconciliation, that's great. That's great. Keep doing that. But we're modern. CIPP enjoys saying we're modern. Everything about it has to be cool.
There's a better way. There's a better way. Yes.
In settings, we have the extensions tab, and that is actually why we're here today, right? It's to show you the extension for gradient. This gradient is actually one of the only extensions we have. It's one of the, it was the very first one we've created. The gradient extension is the first one we've actually made, and it works on both levels that Synthesize supports. It's the alerting module and the billing module are both supported. Now, all you have to do to get this working is you go to your gradient MSP. I already did this, but you set up a custom integration. You give it a nice little name. I named it CIPP Demo 2 because CIPP Demo 1 I already used once, and I figured, you know what, let's just keep counting. Then I entered my API tokens. Of course, I'm not showing these live. That's the only reason I already finished this part of the setup. I don't want to show you guys my tokens. And then you enter the information in CIPP. You simply copy and paste the two API keys, and then you hit the test extension button. When you test the extension, you see we successfully connected to gradient. So now we can click next on the gradient, and we can start mapping things. For example, I think one of mine is called Tony's Tire Emporium.
Tony, we all know Tony. Yeah.
We all know
so this is where this account mapping is essentially what you're seeing on the right is all of your Microsoft tenants that we created from CIPP. So as long as you have all your Microsoft tenants deployed within CIPP, this is where we're going to pull in all that information. So CIPP becomes your source of truth when it comes to Microsoft 365 license reconciliation. So this is just a one-time mapping of accounts and services. We will automatically map accounts to your PSA if there's an exact match, but we all know consistency across your tenants and account naming is really tough, but we just want to make sure that we're not making a mess of your contracts or agreements. So again, we just want to make sure that we're mapping to the right account, and this is all handled within Synthesize, making things really easy. So what Kelvin is doing on the left is scouring your PSA for those accounts, and then mapping, dragging and dropping those over so we can map those appropriately.
Yep. Exactly the same for service up here. In this case, my current CIPP configuration only has two types of services. So business premium, I looked it up, and it tries to match it based on the name, but of course my contracts don't match in the name or something, and then you have to manually do it. And let's say that business basic is developer pack. That's just for fun today because I don't have any other contracts in my Halo PSA testing environment. Now I've mapped all my services. Real quick
about service mapping too is obviously with Microsoft 365 and NCE, it's like the bane of our existence. How do we handle those commitment terms?
Sorry?
How do we handle commitment terms? So like, say for instance, because I don't know if we're pulling in commitment terms. So like Microsoft 365 business standard, obviously we could sell month to month, annual paid monthly, annual commitments. So different commitment billing terms altogether. Although we might not be pulling this through CIPP, we can still handle these things through many-to-one service mappings within Synthesize. So this is where if you have those products built out within your product catalog, within your PSA, so you could potentially resell up to 3 different billing commitment terms per product ID or SKU, essentially from Microsoft, you can map all 3 of those from your PSA to a single license on the right. So what we're pulling in from CIPP, so for instance, if we were reselling annual, monthly, and month-to-month commitments for business standard, we can map those 2 services from your PSA to that single count from CIPP. So you can reconcile different commitment terms and billing terms as you want. So that's just something to note, because I know that's often a question that comes up with Microsoft NCE is how do I support these different commitment terms? So we do have some flexibility within Synthesize to accommodate that, but I'm just kind of curious if there's any other things that we can do in CIPP. Now, maybe it's not through this integration, maybe it is also through CSV imports, right? Because we still can import usage through a CSV file format within Synthesize as well. So I just want to throw that out there. So I don't know if there's anything that we can maybe extrapolate on that through the Graph API, or whatnot to?
So actually, recently, Microsoft announced that they're going to make some changes to how the license API works, because if you currently use the older MSOL module, you're able to get these terms. If you use the older PowerShell module, you can see what terms apply to a license. You can't do that via Graph API currently.
No, you can't.
Soon you will be able to. And at that moment, we will be adding support for that to the Synthesize extension by
that makes me so happy.
by simply adding it to the name. Just saying like NCE monthly, NCE yearly, NCE 3 years, something like that. So by just appending the name a little bit, so you can easily discern which license is which, and you can map those to the correct contracts.
That's the biggest thing.
Already be in the beta version of the Graph API. They announced it 2 weeks ago. It should already be in the beta version of the Graph API, so it should be done soon. TM.
That's amazing. That's the first time I'm hearing that. So that's amazing, because that's definitely been one of the biggest pitfalls when it comes to licensing with Microsoft NCE, and not being able to retrieve that from Graph API. So I'm gonna have to, after this call, I'm gonna be delving into that, because that's been one of the biggest questions that has been coming out of this. So great to see that we're still going to modify this integration to include commitment terms, and that's going to be readily available within Graph API soon. So really cool stuff.
Okay.
You heard it first from Kelvin.
Exactly. Right. Now in this case, we just click OK. Now our thing is set up, and at that moment we can hit the force sync button, or just wait, because it does this every 24 hours. It starts pushing the data towards Gradient. Now I'm saying it does this every 24 hours, but that's actually a little bit of a lie. It pushes the billing data every 24 hours. Because another cool thing that it does is, if you go to your notifications tab right now, and you click on the send notifications to configure integration, and you choose which alerts you would like to receive. So there's a bunch of alerts that you can set up. And there are the alert policies that you can create under tenant administration alert wizard. These will generate tickets into your ticketing system via the Synthesize API. So it will, if you set this checkbox, send notifications to configured integrations, you click on set notification settings, and you go to the alert wizard, you can set up alerts for all of your tenants. For example, when the admin password changes, or when it's missing a conditional access policy while it does have a license for conditional access, or when users don't have MFA enabled, or when license overusage has been discovered, or when 90% quota of a mailbox has been used. You can set up these alerts, you can hit next. The moment you hit submit, it starts sending these alerts directly to your ticketing system. It is queued for every 15 minutes, so every 15 minutes you get an update. Now, that doesn't mean you get a new ticket every 15 minutes, because it detects that it sent something already, and it'll wait a day with creating a new ticket. It'll just say like, hey, this is a ticket that I've created in the last day already. I'm not going to recreate that, just going to wait. And then tomorrow, if the issue is still there, it just creates a new ticket again and again. Now, with the new threading functionality that's coming, it will of course add it to the thread. That's not available right now. So we try to just prevent flooding your ticketing system. But yeah, this is a way to get all of these alerts immediately in your ticketing system, and any alerts generated by CIPP. For example, sometimes you just want an alert when someone creates a user via the system. You just want to make sure that, hey, is there a ticket for every user created? You can go to your notification settings, say like, hey, you know what? I want editing or adding a user. And from now on, it starts sending those alerts.
That's really cool. Can you just, I don't know this, but can you use the Graph Explorer to create your own alerts?
Currently, no. Yes, something like that is coming in the new version. Actually, a friend of ours, Ashley Cooper, has been recently contributing to helping us create a new scheduling engine inside of CIPP that allows you to schedule pretty much any job you want from the CIPP engine. So anything that CIPP is able to execute regarding getting reports, and you'll be able to schedule that and be able to get them to a mailbox, a webhook, or an alert.
That's amazing. Scheduled reports. That's amazing. So we're gonna wrap up this. We have like 6 minutes left, and we covered a ton. So I'm not even going to. Well, I might just have to flip to my screen here, there, Kelvin. But I'll wrap things up here. So I'm just gonna share my screen. Thank you so much. That was amazing. I learned so much. Just goes to show that CIPP does so much, and there's always even more things coming down the pipeline. Now, there's a couple of things that an open Q&A, some anonymous attendee, just not a question, but I just wanted to say that Kelvin is the man. I'm a fan of almost anything this guy touches, so that's just a true testament to what you're doing within the channel. So thank you so much for the time today. That's awesome to hear. Now, as far as the takeaways, real simple. Takeaway number one is managing M365 can be simple. It doesn't need to be just a time crunch. We all know that the Partner Center already has some certain limitations, but you've seen it with your own eyes how quick CIPP is, just to be able to switch between tenants and pull reports on demand. It's truly amazing. So discover the ease of M365 management with CIPP. Again, it's an open source solution tailored for you, the MSP, seeking expertise and efficiency in managing all your client tenants. So if you haven't already got started, I think there was someone within chat just wanting to like take my money now, Kelvin, just throwing money your way, even though it's a free open source solution. So that was really fun. If you want to support Kelvin, by all means, he likes to get paid too. But it's really simple. You can get started. Again, this is takeaway number 2. Get started today. It's super easy, whether it be CIPP. You can get started by going to cipp.app. That's the best place to go there, Kelvin?
Yeah, it's the easiest way to get there, or discord.com/cyberdrain.
Okay, cool. I just put that link in there too. And if you're ever interested in getting started with Synthesize and giving a little trial of the CIPP integration, our alerts billing integration that Kelvin so graciously built, you can go to app.usegradient.com. We give you the first month as your trial period, and then after that, we have a 30-day money back guarantee. And you'll work with myself or someone within our success team to get you kickstarted there. So really easy to get started with both platforms. Really encourage you to get started with that. Now, I think we've answered all the questions. If there is any others, please come in now. This is your last chance. So I'll leave this open until the end of the webinar here. We got 3 minutes to go here. Last but not least, I wanted to just to give a shout out to Channel Days. This is again a great opportunity for you to win some awesome prizes. Channel program, if you don't already know, if you're living underneath a rock, is hosting Channel Days. This is a summer giveaway event spanning 10 business days from July 10th to July 21st. July 21st, this is day 10. Gradient is giving away a solo Ninja Party Pack, sorry. So this is where you have the Ninja Foodie, the Ninja Creamy, the Breeze Ice Cream Maker. Kelvin, do you have that?
I do not have an ice cream maker. Now I want one.
You need it. And the Ninja Creamy Breeze Ice Cream Maker is something that has to be in every household. It's truly amazing. You could, in comfort of your own home, be managing your Microsoft 365 tenants while eating your own homemade ice cream. How awesome would that be? So this is just a reminder to enter. There's some other great sponsors that are giving away things like Airbnb gift cards, Apple AirPod Maxes, which I've always wanted. I think there's a PlayStation PS5 giveaway, an Xbox X giveaway. So yes, there's going to be a clash of consoles, but may the best console win. Lots of good things going there. So go to info.channelprogram.com/channel days, or just Google channel days. Register today if you haven't already, because it's free. You can be entered to win some awesome prizes. So last but not least, Jacob has a question, or maybe not so much a question. How the hell do I learn API like you?
You have to be obsessed. You have to have a little bit of hyper focus on things. And you just have to keep doing it over and over and over and over again. Instead of accepting that something doesn't work via an API, just start figuring out ways to make it work. Break things as much as possible. That is the easiest solution to learning as much about the Graph API as I do.
Yeah, it's no question. You have to be obsessed, and you don't ever give up, just like Ashley said. So yeah, be curious, break things. You know, if you're ever curious about Microsoft, what they have, this CDX experience too, right? So could you not use the CDX to test and trial with some spun up demo tenants?
My demo tenants today were actually CDX tenants. I'll drop the link in chat right now. Every Microsoft partner can go to this page as long as you're registered as a Microsoft partner. You can click on it, log in, and you can create, I think, 5 tenants total to mess around with, to use as your testing environment. It's brilliant. You can even add these as partner tenants so that you can check like how does it respond on a partner API level. So just use those tenants to mess around.
That's truly amazing. You can spin up like 60-day tenants, and I think one year as well. I think that was really helpful for me as an MSP when it comes to like implementing SharePoint intranets as well, and showcasing the Power Platform. You can have a fully spun up demo, fully licensed demo, and it's truly amazing. So you can use that as your sandbox. So if you don't already know about CDX and the Experience Center there, sign up. If you're already a partner, you can get access to that. So really cool stuff. I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you so much, Kelvin. Thank you everyone that attended this webinar. It's been truly awesome to get a firsthand look at CIPP, and truly awesome. It's, you know, every time I look at CIPP, I'm learning something new, and it just goes to the extent of the amount of innovation and sheer determination that the channel and all the contributors have in you know, helping every MSP out there. So it's truly inspiring and awesome. And again, thank you so much. And if you want to chat with Kelvin, what's the best place to go? Is that MSP Geek?
Discord, MSP Geek, all of the big MSP communities. I am an admin on /RMSP, so if you want to send me a message there, feel free to as well. There's pretty much no MSP community in the world where I'm not a part of it, so just make sure that you join any of them, and I should be there.
Yeah, despite you being everywhere, Kelvin, you're usually really responsive. So thank you again. I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you so much, and we'll talk soon. Take care, everyone.
Awesome. Take care, everyone.